Deep Dive Podcast by the Boca Raton Tribune.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our latest deep dive is on a place many still consider, the happiest place on earth, Disney's theme parks. But we're looking at the increasingly unhappy reality of their price tags.
Yeah, it's become a huge topic.
We're synthesizing reports here from the Boca Raton Tribune and also the New York Post, and they're detailing the company's most recent price surge, coast to coast, really.
Right. And our mission today, I think, is to analyze these competing narratives. You've got Disney's corporate justifications on one side.
Managing demand, rising costs, the usual suspects.
Exactly. And then versus the growing consumer backlash, people talking about affordability, value for money. And the immediate headline, peak tickets breaking the $200 barrier for the first time.
Yeah.
That really tells you something fundamental might be changing in how Disney views its audience.
Yeah, that's the tension, isn't it?
Yeah.
The magic feels like it's shifting from maybe a universal family thing to something that feels, much more like a luxury good.
Which raises a pretty important question, I think. Is the magic itself becoming exclusive?
Okay, let's jump straight into the numbers that caused the biggest gasp. We're talking specific price points, the steepest increases, especially if you want to go on the busiest days.
Right. Take Disneyland out in California. Anaheim, their highest tier single-day pass, that's tier 6, it jumped $18.
Just like that.
Just like that, hitting a record $224 for one adult. For one day.
Wow.
And if you zoom out, look at the last decade or so, that's a 126% spike in the top admission price.
126%.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to even think of another entertainment sector with that kind of aggressive price hike.
It really is. And Walt Disney World in Florida isn't far behind, right?
Nope. Magic Kingdom peak day ticket, that went up $10, pushing it to $209.
And peak means what? Holidays? Summer?
Pretty much. The times when schools are out, when most families actually can travel, those are the $209 days now. But, the increases didn't just hit the folks buying single-day tickets. We really need to talk about the cost of loyalty here.
The annual pass holders.
Exactly. The most dedicated fans. They got hit with some pretty substantial hikes, too.
This feels like where it really stings for the core audience, the people who anchor the brand. So Disneyland's top pass, the Inspire Key.
Up by $150. $150.
So what, almost $1,900?
To $0,899. And the tier just below that, the Believe Key, that went up $100 as well.
Okay, so significant jumps across the board there. And Florida.
Same story. Disney World's annual passes, all 4 tiers saw increases, ranging from $20 on the lower end up to $80 on the top one.
Which hits the top pass there, too.
The Incredipass, that's now $1,629. It shows, I think, a really comprehensive strategy. They're trying to maximize revenue from pretty much every single person walking in.
And it's not just admission, is it? It's the other things, too. The nickels and dimes that really add up.
Oh, absolutely. Even parking. Standard parking at the Florida resort jumped $5.
So now it's
$35? $35 just to park your car?
That's almost a theme park ticket at some smaller places.
It's getting close. And then there's the line skipping. Lightning Lane. Remember when FastPass was free?
I do, fondly.
Well, the paid version, Lightning Lane, those prices got adjusted upwards again. The multi-pass option at Magic Kingdom on busy days can now hit $45
Per person.
per person on top of your $209 ticket and your $35 parking.
Wow. Okay. The total cost is just climbing astronomically. All right. So we've established the cost. It's huge. It's eye-watering. Why is Disney doing this? Why risk this kind of consumer, outrage? Let's dive into their side. What's the corporate defense?
Well, the official line, the one they consistently push, is all about dynamic pricing. They frame it as a necessary tool for demand management, meaning they argue that by making those peak days really expensive, they can sort of spread the crowds out more evenly, encourage people to visit during the less crowded off-peak times.
Which, in theory, improves the experience for everyone who does go, right?
Yeah.
Fewer crowds.
That's the theory. That's the rationale they provide. Spreading the magic, if you will, across the calendar.
Okay. What else? They also talk about cost, don't they?
They do. They point to internal pressures, rising costs internally. Specifically, they mention labor costs going up. And also the huge amount of capital they need for ongoing park expansions. New lands, new rides. That stuff isn't cheap.
Right. And they had that specific point about wages, didn't they?
They did. They noted that cast member wages have apparently more than doubled since 2015.
Doubled since 2015. Okay, that's a significant increase in operating costs.
It certainly is. That's a real cost factor. But, the question becomes, does doubling labor costs over, say, 8 or 9 years justify doubling the peak ticket price over a decade?
Yeah, the math feels a little loose maybe, especially when you look at the overall profit margins coming out of the parks division.
Exactly. It feels like maybe one part of a larger picture.
It does. But to be fair, they also push back by highlighting the affordability on the low end. That's a key part of their defense.
That's right. They're quick to point out that the lowest priced single-day tickets haven't changed. Still $104 at Disneyland.
Since 2019, right?
Since 2019. And starting at $119 at Disney World, specifically Animal Kingdom on the lowest demand days. Those prices are static.
And they're making more of those cheap days available.
They are. That $104 tier at Disneyland, it now applies to 38 days in 2025.
Okay, and how many was it before?
It was only 15 days last year.
Wait, so they've more than doubled the availability of the absolute cheapest ticket?
Correct.
If they're genuinely just trying to manage demand with high peak prices, why massively increase the supply of the cheapest days? Does that feel a bit like, I don't know, PR damage control? Or is it a real strategy?
It's probably a bit of both, isn't it? The sources suggest this is how they maintain the appearance of accessibility. They can say, look, the $104 ticket is still here, and there are more chances to get it.
Right. Keep that dream is still accessible narrative alive.
Exactly. And they're also pushing other deals hard. Like, there's a free dining offer for kids at Walt Disney World running through 2026.
Okay.
And for Californians, there's a special park hopper deal that works out to about $83 a day, which, sounds much better.
So the message is, the bargain is still out there, but you really have to hunt for it. You need to be flexible.
You'd have to work for it, yeah. Plan around their cheapest days and offers. But even with those efforts to signal, we still have cheap days, the immediate calculation people do is for the average family.
Right.
And what's fascinating, or maybe alarming, is that a family of 4 could now easily pay almost $900 just for tickets on a single busy day at Disneyland.
$900. Before food, before souvenirs,
Before parking.
before any of that. Just to get through the gate on a peak day.
For a lot of families, that's approaching a mortgage payment. It just fundamentally changes who can even think about doing that kind of trip.
Absolutely. It shifts the demographic. And you see that reflected in the consumer reaction, the dissatisfaction. Yeah, the social media backlash mentioned in the sources sounded pretty intense.
It was scathing. Lots of veteran park goers, people who've gone for years, basically saying this latest hike is the last straw.
The feeling is that the value isn't there anymore.
That's a huge part of it. The specific critique you see over and over is Disney keeps taking away things while raising prices.
Right. The Lightning Lane thing is a perfect example. Replacing the free Fast Pass system people were used to for decades with something you have to pay extra for, often quite a lot extra.
Exactly. It feels like a reduction in value simultaneous with a massive price increase. That's a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, the sources mentioned quotes from places like Reddit. People really venting.
Oh, yeah. One comment that stood out was someone saying they'd been a pass holder for 19 years.
Wow, nearly 2 decades.
And this latest round of price hikes and sort of perceived cuts in value was finally enough to make them not renew. They felt like Disney had finally found the price limit people just weren't willing to pay anymore.
They hit their personal ceiling.
Yeah. And if you connect this feeling, this resentment, to the bigger financial picture, it makes a lot of sense why people feel that way.
Because the parks are doing well.
Doing well is an understatement. The theme parks division, Disney Experiences, has been the company's absolute cash cow. Undisputed.
How much are we talking?
This year, the division generated a staggering $8.12 billion in profit.
$8.12 billion. Just from parks, experiences, products.
Just from that division.
Put that in perspective for us. How does that compare to, say, the movies or streaming?
Okay, get this. That $8.12 billion profit from experiences is roughly a third more than Disney's film, streaming, like Disney Plus, and sports, like ESPN businesses combined.
Wait, seriously? More profit than movies, streaming, and sports put together?
Combined, yeah. The parks are carrying a huge amount of the financial weight for the entire company right now.
So when consumers see those kinds of record profits alongside record ticket prices,
it fuels the resentment. It makes the rising costs argument feel a little less convincing, maybe. And it really justifies, from a business perspective at least, why they're pushing prices this hard. It supports this new model, prioritizing margin growth, maybe even exclusivity, over that legacy of being a universally accessible family place. And that brings us right to the core debate, really. Is this sustainable? The company is clearly signaling massive confidence. They believe the demand is enduring.
They're betting that enough high-income families, international tourists, and maybe just superfans will keep paying these premium prices.
Right. But the big question is, does constantly pushing this high premium model risk alienating that core, loyal, middle-class family audience in the long run, the ones who maybe built the brand's cultural cachet in the first place?
It feels like a huge gamble on the long-term health of the brand itself. They're relying heavily on that brand loyalty, the uniqueness of the Disney Park product, to justify these costs basically indefinitely.
They're essentially redefining who their target core family is, maybe moving it up the income ladder quite significantly.
Yeah. But okay, for the listener, for you listening right now, who might still want to go, but is feeling that budget pinch, the sources did offer some practical advice, some ways to try and counter these price hikes.
Definitely. Strategic planning is basically mandatory now if you're cost conscious.
So what's tip number one?
Flexibility. That's the big one. If you can be flexible with your travel dates.
Aim for those off-peak times.
Exactly. Hunt for those 140 days or just generally less busy periods and be reactive to deals. Sometimes they drop offers for specific times of the year or for residents. You have to be watching.
Okay, flexibility is key. What else? Lodging.
Yeah, lodging is a huge expense. If you're committed to the trip but need to save money, you probably need to look beyond the premium Disney-owned hotels.
Like the Grand Floridian or the Contemporary.
Right. At Walt Disney World, for instance, the sources mentioned Disney's own value resorts, like the All-Star resorts. They're still on property, you get some perks like transportation, but they're much more affordable.
Okay, so still Disney, but the budget ends. And out in California for Disneyland.
There, you might need to look just outside the resort area. Anaheim has lots of other hotels. The sources mentioned places like the Castle Inn and Suites, or the Hilton Anaheim, which apparently got a nice refurbishment. They're often much cheaper than the Disney-owned hotels right there.
So the takeaway is, if you still want the magic on a budget, you have to get clever, you have to plan the logistics carefully, be flexible, and maybe compromise on staying right in the Disney bubble.
Absolutely. The spontaneous, easy Disney trip might be a thing of the past for many families. #tag outro.
So wrapping this up, what does it all mean? We've really seen the two sides of the ledger here. On one side, you have Disney's strategic use of this tiered pricing. They argue it's to manage crowd flow, optimize revenue, which as we saw is record-breaking, and ultimately they claim keep the experience magical by preventing crushing overcrowding, even if that magic comes at a really steep price.
Right. That's the corporate narrative. But then on the other side, you have the very tangible reality for many families. The classic Disney experience is just slipping out of financial reach.
Yeah, feeling priced out.
Priced out. And that feeling is compounded when they see things that used to be free, like FastPass now costing extra money.
Yeah.
It feels like less value for significantly more cost.
It really is the ultimate tightrope walk for them, isn't it? Trying to price for maximum profit and maybe exclusivity while still somehow maintaining that image of universal family fun that the brand was built on.
It really is. And this consistent upward trend year after year, it really demonstrates that the company increasingly views its theme parks less as that easily accessible family destination,
And more as,
more as a premium, maybe even luxury entertainment commodity. One that just happens to be the main financial engine driving the entire Walt Disney Company right now.
which leaves us with a pretty provocative final thought, I think.
Yeah, in a world where Disney experienced the most profitable part of Disney, generating more income than movies, streaming, and sports combined, who is this magic truly being priced for? And if it's increasingly priced for the affluent, what are the long-term cultural implications of that decision? What does it do to the shared idea of Disney magic if fewer and fewer people can actually afford to experience it firsthand? That's something to really think about.